Canva, and I'll be talking about, yeah, so recording is in progress. So I'll be talking about Canva, the basics of Canva, and how we can utilize Canva effectively and make a pleasing brand compliant flyers and designs that we have. So welcome to this meeting, to all the 40 odd participants present out here. Let me first share my screen. So let me again start off with a quick question. Why Canva? It is open to all. You can have your mic on, or you can type it in the chat box. Why Canva and why not any other tool? There are other tools. If I have to name some, Adobe Spark, Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, yeah, right? You have several other tools that are competent with Canva, but why Canva and why not any other tool? Questions open to all. You can type it in the chat box or have your mic unmuted and answer it. Anybody? Okay, so okay, Canva is convenient, easiest to use and user-friendly. Yes, it's easier. Again, a lot of people feel it's easier. Definitely correct. User-friendly, available on web, easy. Yes, definitely. So you definitely know why you're using Canva and not any other tool. But for me, being a finance student and a finance graduate, I was keenly searching of why people are actually using Canva. And I found this. Canva leaps to a valuation of 15 billion as revenue doubles. Now, once a company, it's a startup, all right? Once a company reaches a valuation of more than $1 billion, they get a tag of a unicorn. And within a couple of years, it has reached a valuation of 15 billion. So it is not only us who are liking Canva, who are assuming it to be user-friendly, but it is the entire globe who is using Canva for different purposes. So definitely, Canva is user-friendly and intuitive because you can work around with anything. You have complete freedom of working around in Canva. You have no limitation whatsoever. And the more you play around with it, the more you learn using Canva. The second thing that I really like about Canva is that there are thousands of ready-made templates which you can which are freely available and which you can edit at any time. You can find it over here. I'll talk about it in details later on in the session. And so this, I can definitely say that Canva is user-friendly and there are thousands of ready-made templates that are available. And the third thing that I like about Canva, and most of us definitely love about Canva, is the accessibility. You can access it from anywhere, anytime, right? You don't have to download any app in case you're using it from your laptop or your device, right? And if you are using it from your mobile, there's a simple app to download and you can work freely on Canva. So these are certain aspects that are really likely to have this particular tool called Canva to be user friendly. And of course, there are a lot more reasons for us to use Canva. Some may be personal, some may be universal, but yes, Canva is definitely user friendly. So moving on, let's start decoding the interface of Canva. Okay, so I'll talk about the interface of Canva in brief. I'll start from the very basics of Canva. So how do you go to Canva? Simply log into Canva, canva.com. This is the interface, right? It's pretty simple. You have different tools, you have different pop-ups, right? Let's start off with templates that I talked about. You have thousands of templates and thousands of categories from where you can choose your particular flyer to be, right? For example, if it is a presentation, you go on to presentation, you find various templates and you yourself see which is compliant and which you can readily edit in terms of Toastmasters International. If it is a poster, you select poster, you search for various options. Let's say I click on poster. You have different options which with a simple glance, you can keep it in mind that you can definitely edit it in form of Toastmasters brand compliant flyer. There are lots of flyer you can choose around with, and it doesn't take any effort whatsoever in editing all these flyers. So this is how you go and select a template. And of course, Canva does provides you with lots of features which you can play around with. There are free photos, there are free backgrounds, there are different photos related to different themes, be it nature, animals, food, people, whatever it is. Now I'll briefly talk about what kind of pictures we as Toastmasters and public relation managers are allowed to use. There are several icons which are again freely available to all of us, print products, apps. You can definitely link Canva with your club's, your particular club's Facebook account. You can link your Canva with your Google Drive and things become a lot more accessible. But in case if you're really very new, let's say you have shifted from MS Paint or Word to Canva and you try and make some designs and you know nothing about designing, Canva provides you free tutorials as well, right? You can click on videos and you get everything for free of course, which are really engrossing and you can really learn about Canva in case if you're really new to Canva. So what else do you want, right? You have everything right on place. Now, if you can afford, you can definitely try and use a pro version of Canva, which has a lot more features and which becomes a lot more. And by purchasing one, things become a lot more easier, right? So this is a different thing altogether. Now let's see what kind of tools that are present out here. So all your designs. Now, whatever designs you create, it becomes clearly visible out here, right? You can easily access it. Whatever things that are shared by somebody else to you becomes easily accessible here again. And the important thing that I would like to talk about is the brand kit, right? In this corner, you find an option called brand kit. Becomes pretty simple to us, right? Now, there are limitations, of course, but in the free account, what we are allowed to do is that we are allowed to add our brand colors. Now, what are Toastmasters International brand colors? You very well know. I'll just show those to you. Yeah, so here we have it. We have three different primary colors and one accent color, which are called True Maroon, Loyal Blue, Cool Gray, and Happy Yellow, right? So you can easily place all those color out here. Now I'll definitely tell you about the color codes as well, but for time being, I'm placing these colors. This is the blue one. Red one, and let's say the gray one, right? The limitation again, you can only add 3 palette colors, but once you add in, and then later on when you go to your canvas, things become really easier because you don't have to type all those color codes again and again. It's already there in your brand color. And in case if you have a pro account, if you have access to pro account of Canva, you can add in fonts as well. If you try to do it in free account, it won't allow you to do it, right? If you change it to something else, it won't allow you to do it. It will ask you to yeah, as you can see here, upload a font, you need to have a pro account, right? So if you have access to pro account, you can add in text, you can add in logos, and things become really very clear and really very easier to all of us, right? So this is one thing that is really nice about Canva. You can plan for your content, but again, you need to have a pro account, access to pro account of Canva. And one more thing that is really nice about Canva is that you can form a team, right? Let's for an example, say you yourself have an access to Canva and you want all of your team members of your particular club to have the access and to have the visibility in similar fashion as you do, right? So for that, what you got to do is you need to create a team, right? You form a team, you add all your members here. Let's say I have formed a team called Elite PR. My home club is Elite Toastmasters Club, and I invite my club members. You simply add in their email addresses, they'll get a notification and they can become a part of your Canva account. Now, if you're able to clearly see this video, you can clearly understand and you can clearly relate why important it is to have a proper team in case we do have one and how easier things becomes, right? You can clearly see here, a lot of people are working in one single file at one time altogether, and they are being able to access and they are able to edit things altogether, right? So things become really easier by using all these tools. So this was the basic interface of Canva. Now, moving on. Now, what I'll try to do is that I'll try to link our particular brand manual of Toastmasters International with Canva, because a lot of times, despite knowing the color gradients, despite knowing the color codes, despite knowing the entire guidelines at all, when we try to move on to some designing tool, whatever tool it is, we try to mess around with the guidelines itself, right? And things become non-brand compliant, right? So I'll start off with colors. So these are the different colors that are available to us: blue, red, and gray, right? And inside, these are primary colors, of course, and yellow, as the brand guideline suggests, is an accent color, right? You can't use it as a primary color. We have seen a lot of flyers in which yellow has been used as a primary color, as a background color. That is simply not allowed, because you can't allow yellow to have the maximum amount of depth in terms of color when it comes to colors particularly, right? So yellow can be placed in form of shapes, text, or whatever it is in front. It can be a foreground, it cannot be a background, for sure. It can be a foreground. You can place it in form of text, you can place it in form of any shape you like to. Same goes with red, gray, all these colors you can place, but one thing that you need to make sure is that you only use blue, red, and gray as primary colors or background colors, right? You can't use yellow in particular as your primary background color. But when it comes to black, things aren't mentioned in brand guidelines, and we have seen a lot of flyers where black has been primarily used as a background color. Using black as a color in form of shape or anything is strictly not allowed. You can definitely use it in your text, you can definitely use it, right? But you cannot use it as a background. Thereby, if your background is black and rest of the colors are okay, this is not brand compliant, right? The flyer would get rejected by the team, right? So this is how we play around with colors. So how do you use these colors? I deleted, let's say, all right. So I'll try to have a color placed over here. So how do you do that? Select this particular layer, which is called a canvas. You select this canvas and you go to this tool which says background color, and you type in the color code, right? You type in the color code, which is called hexadecimal code, and you get the exact color code. What are the codes? Clearly mentioned in the brand guidelines. For red, the hexadecimal code is 772432, followed by blue, which is 004165, gray A9B2B1, and yellow F2DF74. If you input any number or any letter here and there, things will get changed and the color will get changed for sure, right? Whichever app you use, no matter whatever tool it is, if you place in the color, exact color code, you will get the exact color itself. You're not having a different color altogether. Let's say if you're not using Canva and you're using Photoshop, right? So this is how it is. Now, how do you place the color? Select the canvas. Let's say you want to have your background color as blue. You type in your color code 004165, click on enter, get the exact color code. There you go. You want it to be red, 772432. You get the color, there you go, right? So this is how you place in colors. Now, when we talk about this particular interface, there are a lot of stuffs and it does look slightly technical, doesn't it? So if you click on elements, let's say, you have a lot of stuffs to play around with, right? You've got, you get a recently used tab, you get different shapes and figures, you've got graphics, you've got charts, frames, grids, all those stuffs are placed in elements. But we have to make sure, we have to be 100% sure, and we have to be 100% aware of what all are we supposed to use when it comes to making a flyer or a designing element for Toastmasters International, right? So we'll quickly start off with shapes. Click on shapes, thousands of shapes to play around, right? But not all are brand compliant, right? So let's say you choose a square, right? So you can either just click on it, you get your square here, or you drag it over here, drag and drop, right? So this is how you place You can play around with sizes, right? You can play around with sizes in whichever way you want to. So this is the way to place your element, which is shape. You've got graphics here, which of course, by looking at it, you're definitely not allowed to use all these graphics, which are strictly not brand compliant, right? So you can play around with all these stuffs. I've got an upload tab. So how do you upload stuffs to Canva? I'll tell you about it shortly. You've got picture tab, you've got a text tab, right? So things look pretty simple, right? Now you have in the option called more, you've got all the apps that can be integrated with Canva. Pixels, Pixelby, embeds, Facebook. You can create a QR code altogether within fraction of seconds. You can link Google Map with your Canva, right? You can link your Google Drive in case you have pictures, in case you have files placed in your Google Drive and you want to directly import all those files to your Canva. You can easily do that by linking your account with your Google Drive. You can post directly the stuff that you make. You can post it directly to Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn by linking all these accounts with Canva, right? So this is how the interface looks like. And one thing that we sometimes tend to miss is the option called ruler. I've disabled it first. If you go to file top here, you see an option called show ruler, option called show margins. Right, once you click on it, you see a ruler present out here. Now, how do you play around with ruler? How it does come into handy, I'll definitely talk about it in depth in some upcoming I beg your pardon, I'll definitely talk about it later. So how do you play around with it? You just keep your cursor out here, right? You get an arrow kind of stuff, and there you go, you have a ruler out here, right? So it becomes really very easy when you have a ruler in place, and when you want things to be properly aligned, things become really simple, right? Same goes with the top ruler. You want to drag and you want to drop it, right? Pretty simple. If you want to hide it, you don't need guides, you don't need margins, right? So this is how you hide it. So this is basically the interface of Canva, which at first glance does look technical, but once you get a hang of it, becomes really simple. Now talking about the font styles that are allowed. Okay, so in Toastmasters, we are allowed to use only two different types of fonts, which are, let me open the brand manual first. So we are allowed to use only two different types of fonts, which are Myriad Pro or Gotham. So you have two different fonts called Gotham and Myriad Pro, right? So what does it say about Gotham? Gotham is Toastmasters International's primary typeface. The white stance and geometric trails of its characters exude confidence without looking stiff or digitalized. So basically the font, what Toastmasters say is that the font does portray some confidence and it doesn't look digitalized, and hence the font called Gotham can only be used for headlines and subheads, right? So you can only use the font called Gotham for headings. Let's say you want to prioritize your theme of your meeting, you use Gotham. You have some subheadings in your flyer, you use Gotham, but for rest of the text, which are not really primary, you use some other text which is called Myriad Pro, right? But unfortunately in Canva, we don't have the access of Gotham unless we have the access of Pro version of Canva. So therefore, we are allowed to use the text called Montserrat, which is the alternate form of Gotham, for only for headlines and subheads, okay? And when it comes to some other text, primary text fonts that are there in your flyer, you're supposed to use Myriad Pro. But again, Myriad Pro isn't freely accessible unless we have access to Pro account, and therefore Source Sans Pro, which is freely accessible and available, can be used for body copy, and for collaterals, right? So you can only use Source Sans Pro for rest of the text that you have in your flyer, right? So as I have kept it over here, it's a heading. Let's say it has been the font called Montserrat has been used. So how do you place a heading out here? as I've talked, you go to text and you see an option called add a heading, right? So this is how you have a text out here and you edit the font. So how do you edit it? Just select this layer, type in Montserrat here. You get different versions of Montserrat. Of course, you are definitely allowed to use different styles of Montserrat. The font family has to remain Montserrat. If it is a heading or if it is a subhead, it has to be Montserrat, but you can play around with any of the font styles, right? You might want to make it look a little bit bolder. So you keep it bold, right? Similarly for subheading, you keep it Montserrat, and if it is some other text that is there in your flyer, the text has to be so sans pro, right? As simple as that. If you use any other text, those are strictly not allowed, right? Those can be easily identifiable, and unfortunately, just for one single thing, which is text, your flyer might get rejected by the district PR team in the district platform, right? So we do want to make sure that the texts are correct, the styles are correct, and the use, of course, the proper use of text is being followed as suggested by the brand managers. So this was as simple as that regarding text. Now I'll straight away move on to different varieties of logos that are available. Now, how do you where do you get these logos? Simple. You go to resources, you log into your Toastmaster site, you go to option called resources. There you have brand portal. Log into brand portal, and you have all the stuffs that are related to Toastmasters brand manual, brand guidelines, and stuff that are related to Toastmaster as a brand. And there you have an option called logo and design elements, right? So here you have all the different kind of logos that are available. You can have an editable file as well. You can have PNG, JPEG file as well. So you can you can try and download all these stuffs and see what the exact difference between all these logos are, right? So these are the different logos. How do you upload it? You clearly see an option called upload. You upload your media. Click on upload media. This is one option where you click on upload media and you get and you're supposed to select whatever you wish to upload, right? Let's say this is the logo. I've uploaded it. The logo comes here, right? This is one way. Second, you just open that particular file of logo, copy and paste it in Canva. The file gets uploaded. As simple as that, right? So once things get uploaded here, you paste it over here, or you drag and drop, whichever way you find it suitable. You place logo over here wherever you want to, right? You play around with it. Fine. This is how you place logos, and these are different variants of logos that are available to us for our use, right? Now, many a times we have seen that just because of the placement of logo, many flyers gets rejected by the district PR team in district platform, right? Why does this happen? Because there is certain restrictions of placing the logo properly. What does brand manual say? So logo, yes or no? So definitely beneath the logo, you can have your club's name, you can have your area's name, whatever you want. You can have your club's name, as I said, your area, district, you can do it. But strictly not, you cannot play around with logo. You don't want to mess around with logo, right? You've seen several stuffs. Let's say for people in India, let's say you order something from Zomato, right? When you order something from Zomato, you get their parcel and their logo is clearly visible, right? They don't play around with your logo, and in your stuff as well, they place a proper tape with Zomato's logo without being played around with it, right? You order anything, or you just simply watch. Take an example of any brand, right? You see their logo being properly placed. They don't play around with their logo. Of course, you can increase sizes of your logo, but you can't twist, turn, increase width, hide the logo, right? So in Canva, if I have to show that to you, so in Canva, you only can increase width and height in a similar ratio. You can't just increase the width or height, right? So you can't just cut the logo like this, right? You can't place it like this in your flyer. The logo is distorted. You can't do that. The logo has to be seamless, right? So this is how you place your logo. And when it comes to placing, of course, there's a certain size that has been mentioned about the logo. Here, for web, which is for flyers and designs that we create, it has to be a minimum of 72 pixels. Now to resolute, now to relate these pixels in form of size, it becomes really technical. But all that we can understand is that the logo has to be clearly visible, and it has to be of an appropriate size so that other stuffs don't get distorted, and the logo doesn't get highlighted. We have talked about it in our session previously, and stuffs about brand guidelines have been talked throughout in all these sessions. So we must ensure that we have a proper size and we have a proper placement of our logo, right? We have seen a lot of logos, a lot of flyers, everything is okay, but just the logo, just because of the logo which is placed in the corner, it doesn't have any room whatsoever, the flyer gets rejected, right? The logo is placed somewhere in the text and it gets diluted, and just because of that the flyer gets rejected, right? So you need to ensure that you have a clear space around your logo. You have a clear working area, and the logo doesn't get distorted. The logo is placed separately and it gets its own importance, it gets its own value, and you work around with your designs following the brand manual, right? So this is applicable to all different form of logos. You can't play around, you can't twist the logo whatsoever, right? You need to place it properly, and there you are good to go. I've talked about font styles. You are only allowed to use Montserrat, different variants of Montserrat, So Sans Pro, and rest of the fonts are strictly not allowed, right? So now I have talked about brand guidelines in brief. Now I would be talking about the position tool that is available in Canva, which comes into handy. Let's say I delete it first. Let's say we add in shapes, for example. Now we want this shape. We have a couple of shapes. Let's say this is of red color, and you have another shape which is of yellow in color, let's say. So you want this shape which is square, which is red in color, to be in front of yellow. So how do you do it, right? So first you click on this shape, you see an option called position out here, right? So you click on position. Firstly, I beg your pardon, you place this shape out here, triangle, and you select this square, and you click on position, and you see several options, right? If you want to bring it forward, if you want this to be in foreground, you click on forward. If you want this to be in background, you click on backward, right? So you click on forward, the shape is in front, right? So these are simple tools that are available in Canva, which of course right now looks pretty simple, but once you start making designs, this tool really comes into handy, because there are several stuffs that are supposed to be properly placed so that things become easier to use, right? So this is how you use position tool. You can surely play around with it after this session. Now I would want to move on with the regarding the text as well. You can similarly for text as well, you can use the position tool. With help of position tool, you see this text catch up with Canva in blue is placed ahead of catch up with Canva in red, followed by yellow and blue, right? So this is how you play around with this tool. And if you want to give a proper 3D effect, 3D kind of effect, you can use this, and things will definitely look clearer, and things will definitely look beautiful once you get a hang of position tool, right? So this is all about position tool. Now how to upload stuff in Canva, I've talked about it in brief, which is pretty simple. Now the major thing that I would like to talk about is use of gradients. In Toastmasters brand manual, you get a section on gradient colors, right? So here again, in very clear language, in very clear font, in very clear use of gradient, the instructions on use of gradient has been mentioned, right? So earlier, now the gradient tool does look really fancy. Now what exactly is gradient? You mix blue and you mix red, you get a kind of a mixture of two colors, right? You get a kind of a mixture of two colors. So a lot of time it happens, and a lot of time we have seen that people fall into this trap of gradient, and just because of gradient their flyer gets rejected, because in Toastmasters International the brand manual says that you are only allowed to use gradient with that particular color itself. You're not supposed to use a gradient with mixing by mixing blue and red, or let's say by mixing blue or yellow or whatever color it is. When it comes to mixture of three colors, let's say you mix blue, red and yellow together, you get a gradient. This really doesn't look like a gradient, but once you make a gradient of this form, you get a mixture of three colors. You're not allowed to use that, right? It has clearly mentioned about the use of gradients. So what kind of gradients are allowed? If I go to the brand manual, it has clearly given us instructions about the use of gradient. Blue with the color code of blue, right? A lighter form of blue, which is called blissful blue. You're allowed to use gradient of these many forms when it comes to a gradient of blue color. Similarly, when it comes to gradient of red color, you have different forms. You're allowed to use gradients in these form only. And when it comes to gray, of course, similar kind of patterns for gray as well. And why not yellow? Because of course background yellow cannot be used as a primary color. It is an accent color, so you can't use it as a primary one. So these are the use of gradient. And one more thing that we need to be aware of is that we can mix yellow, I beg your pardon, we can mix blue with white, we can mix red with white, anything, any color, any primary color that Toastmaster has, three colors, we can definitely use a gradient of that particular color with a white one, right? So what kind of gradients are allowed? Now, how do you select a gradient? You go to elements. Now, most of you might find option called gradient somewhere down here, but if you don't have, you just type it over here, gradient, and you go to graphics. You get different forms of gradient that we can freely use, right? Some of them are available to only those who have access to Canva Pro, but most of the gradients are allowed to be freely used. But again, we'll have to be very off, and we must be aware of what kind of gradients we can use and what kind of gradients we definitely cannot use, right? It totally comes up to the understanding of brand guidelines and the brand manual. So let's say we select this, right? We select this gradient, which is a mixture of two colors. So you get this gradient out here, and you just change the color as suggested by Toastmasters International. So for a linear gradient, what color codes? Let's say if it is a red, what color code do you have? Moving from deep maroon, which is 3, I'll have to check the code. It is 3B0104. You get this red and mix it up with rich maroon, which is 781327. 781327. There you go. You have the color, you have the gradient. Perfect. Now this is definitely allowed to be used, right? So this is how you can play around with gradient, and this is how you can use gradient, right? You can similarly, you can follow instructions for blue. Similarly, you can follow instructions for cool gray, and you can find yourself of what kind of gradient is suitable for your particular flyer, right? So this is particularly the interface of Canva, and this is particularly different kind of tools and different kind of stuff that we are allowed to use within Toastmasters International, right? Now, I would want to move on to a section where I would be actually working on Canva and making some flyers, right? So for that, in the initial, the session that was conducted before this, we had a segment wherein different Toastmasters were supposed to create a rough sketch for their template, and then using this rough sketch, using this kind of template for themselves, making a flyer in Canva, right? So I'll be using these templates, couple of templates that we have, and I'll be trying to make a brand compliant and a brand friendly flyer, right? So if you're not aware of this particular segment, what we did was we asked all the participants to create a sketch, right? We talked about proximity, we talked about hierarchy, we talked about different design aspects, right? I'm not sure if that video is going to be uploaded. So and later on, participants were asked to create a rough sketch so that they can use this particular sketch as a reference and then move on to their designing tool, right? So I'll be using this one. So here it isn't that clear as this is a screenshot. So here what she has done, Toastmaster Isha Thapa from Tourism Toastmasters Club, what she has done is that she has taken she has made a canvas out here, and she has placed her theme out here, her meeting theme, and TI logo seems to be placed out here, and she have speakers who have been placed out here, and finally the Toastmaster of the day who has been placed out here in the canvas. And right here she has placed a meeting information and club information. So this is particularly the sketch that she has drawn. So let's try to use this particular sketch to make our design, right? So let's log into Canva. And now the most important thing is that how do we select our canvas? Which size of canvas do we select? So the simple thing is you go to create, I beg your pardon, you go to, you go to create design and you find several stuffs, right? You have option called presentation. If it is a presentation, it will present you a canvas of 1920 into 1080 pixel. If it is an Instagram post, it will mention you that respective size. If you are supposed to post this particular flyer in Facebook, you would want to have a different size altogether, right? So it is completely up to the kind of design and kind of sketch that you make, and then try to find out a suitable canvas size for it, right? So in this case, let's say in this case, you might want to have a squarer kind of design, if not square, a rectangular kind of design, which fits perfectly, right? But the important thing that we need to make sure is that when you post your flyer in different social medias, they have different size resolution kind of restrictions, right? Instagram usually allows you to post a squarer kind of post. Facebook allows you to post a different kind of post, and LinkedIn, for LinkedIn, you have different kind of category and different kind of resolution, right? So the safest option that I would suggest you all to go around with is Instagram post, because Instagram the kind of flyer that you create for Instagram can be posted anywhere in any site, right? So let's say we select Instagram post and we get a size, right? We get a square size. So what does this particular sketch say? The TI logo has been placed in the right corner, theme over here in the extreme left corner, right? So let's do it. Regarding the background, what I usually do is that after making the entire design, I try to place in the background color, right? So you can do it either way, right? If you want to have, if you have fixed your mind, if you have sketched, and if you have thought that, okay, the blue one would look good in this particular design, go with the blue one. There's no restriction. The only restriction is that you use proper color codes and proper, and you properly follow the brand guidelines, right? So you select blue. Let's say if you want to select red, you select red, you place in the logo. How do you place it? Logo has already been uploaded here. You place in the logo and you resize it, right? Let's say you place it over here. Now you have different variants of logo. It is not absolutely mandatory that you use this form of logo. You have several other forms. Let's say you want to use this one, which is going in contrast. Let's say we use this white one. You can definitely use this logo. There's no restriction whatsoever regarding the use of logo, but the only logos that can be used are those that has been provided in the brand manual, right? You can't change the color codes of logo itself, right? So you can use this logo. Let's say we use this one and we place our theme somewhere over here, right? So you let's say you have a ruler, you would want to properly align your text. So this is why you use ruler, because you get a clear idea of where you would want to place your theme, right? Your theme or your club details or whatever it is, right? So what has she done? She has placed a theme out here. So let's place our theme, our meetings theme out there. So if you want to highlight the theme, keep it Montserrat. If you don't, it is completely up to you, but you need to make sure that primary things gets highlighted and the text for those kind of stuffs gets used properly, right? You align it properly, place it over here, and you resize it. So what is your theme? Let's say catch up with Canva. You resize it. Now you definitely want to clearly make people understand that this is actually the theme of the meeting. So for that, you would definitely want a text above it, which is theme of the meeting. Again, you can consider this as a subhead, and hence the text has to be Montserrat. You can use any form of Montserrat as I've mentioned it earlier. As per the design and as per your understanding, you can use any text to place your theme out here, right? Now, what has she done? Now she has placed 3 different photos. This must be the photo of the speakers, let's say. So we place in 3 photos of speakers and 1 for TMOD, right? Now, one thing that I would want to talk about regarding the use of photos is that, let's say, we upload photo, just like we uploaded logos. Let's say we use any photo, right? These are sample photos that were uploaded here earlier. So use this photo. Now you don't get any option to, crop the background out of it, right? You want a clear picture. You just want the picture. You don't want the background anywhere, right? So you aren't allowed to do that in the free version. You don't know anyway how you could do it, right? You do get an option somewhere to remove the background, but again, once you click on it, you are asked to pay for the pro version of Canva, right? So you can use third-party app. The app that I usually use when I work on Canva is remove.bg. Remove background. You can remember this name through remove background if you remember it that way. The site is remove.bg. So you upload the image with that doesn't have a background for sure, and you upload it over there, and the picture and the app itself removes the background and sends you a picture which has a background removed, right? So you get a clear picture, you don't have the background, and things look really professional. So you can try doing that. So I have some pictures which have already been uploaded, which have already uploaded with their background removed. So as you can see, the background is removed, and you place pictures of speakers, sample speakers out here. Again, you would want to use the ruler here so that everyone are placed together properly. Then you have this person. Resize it. You place it. You would want to make things look tidy. Now you want her to be at the center, right? So you take your ruler, drag it. At one point of time, this ruler itself stops, and that shows that this happens to be the center of the flyer, right? So this is the center. From the top, you play around with it, it stops at one point of time, and this happens to be the center, right? So this particular point is the center, and you can easily, with the help of ruler, place her in the center and these 2 people in the corner, right? So this is how you place them. You would want to resize, and then what has she done? She has placed boxes, possibly for their names. So let's place boxes out here. So how do you place a box? You go to elements, you have shapes, use a square one, you can resize it at any point of time, resize it, place it over here. Now depending upon the flyer, you decide on the size of the shape, right? As simple as that. Nothing too technical about it, right? You don't want your text or image get beyond this line, right? You're maintaining a proper balance of it and proper proximity of it, right? So you don't want things to get ahead of that line. So you balance it. You use a ruler in whichever form you would want to use. You use a ruler and you try to balance it. Now, if you want to change the color, you change it, right? So things become really easier when you play around with all these kind of tools, which are very simple in use. And if you want make use of any third-party app just for these pictures, you can make use of that so that things look professional, right? So you place all the boxes, you change their color if you want to, and later, let's say if you want to add an effect, a lot of time people say about adding proper effect to the picture. We have seen those effects being used when flyers are made in some advanced tool. Let's say if it is Photoshop, you see kind of effects that are given to text, you see kind of effects that are given to pictures, right? In the latest version, you're allowed to do that as well, right? You select your image, you see an option called edit image right here, and you see an option called shadow, right? Let's say you want to have a drop shadow. You click on it and you have a shadow kind of effect out here. See how good that it looks? It gives a 3D kind of effect, right? You can of course play around with different tools with respect to shadow, right? You can play around with it. You can see what suits well. Just like for this, you would want to have a drop shadow. You add a drop shadow, just with a click, you get a professional looking shadow to an image. Similarly for this, get a professional kind of looking shadow, right? So this is how you play around with different tools of Canva. Now you would want to change the color. Let's say you want to use yellow. Of course, we are not using yellow as a primary color out here, right? This is not our primary color. Our primary color in the background is red, and we might use some other color apart from yellow for text and other stuffs as well, right? So we are not using yellow for primary purpose, right? So you change the color. It is properly going on with the background color as well, and you add in your text here, right? So one way of adding text, again, you go to text, you go to the option called add heading, you resize it, right? And you add a text here. This is one way. The other way, you already have a text here. You simply either copy paste it, you get a version of text, you edit it as per your choice, right? You don't have to keep on going on to this section, right? One way of doing it, copy paste. The other, select this layer, press your Alt button and drag, right? Pretty easy. Select this layer, press Alt button, Alt in your keyboard, you drag, right? So you can, whichever way suits you, you use those kind of option, right? So again, now this text is in white in color, doesn't go along with the background. You might want to change the text. You might want to change the color, or you might want to change the text as well, right? You might want to keep it Source Sans Pro. Bolder version of Source Sans Pro. You increase the size of it, right? So you get a text, you resize it as per the flyer, and then just rename it. Let's say it is Toastmaster XYZ ABC, whatever it is. Let's not go with the name. You properly aligned it, you place it, there you go. Just like for all, copy, paste, copy and paste, right? You might want to add information, rest of the information that we can of course do. So this is how you align, and this is how you follow the template. Now she has a TMOD's picture out here. So if you have enough space, of course, you can do, right? You select all the layers. Yeah, what we are trying to do is that we are trying to have some space around it, and we place, let's say he's the TMOD, we place his picture out here, and we use this particular box itself for his details, right? You place in TMOD's picture here, and then you have enough space to add in your club details, right? So this is how, after making a simple sketch, you're freely and you're easily being able to create a design out of it, right? Of course, now you can play around with colors. You might want to change it. Blue, fine, works, cool. Gray works, cool. Whichever color that suits you, that you feel is going along in your flyer, you must go with it, right? So you can choose any color, and this is how you form a flyer, a simple flyer here. Of course, you can add in your club details in whichever form you want to, right? So this flyer with very little effort becomes really appealing, right? You don't have to put in a lot of effort. Of course, right now when I'm explaining stuff, it is taking some bit of time, but once you get a hang of it, you definitely can make a simple base out of it, right? And once you get a proper hang of Canva, then you can play around with tools called gradient. Then you can have several artifacts, right? You have several tools with respect to gradient itself. You have several kind of gradients that are brand compliant and that you can use. You have different lines that you can use, right? You can place different shapes here and there just to make the design look good, right? In whatever form you want to. But the overall thing that we are here to do is that we are here to highlight the importance of Toastmasters International, highlight the colors of Toastmasters International, and of course, the second we think is to make a proper flyer following the brand manual, right? So without any effort, let's say in around 5 or 10 minutes, you can create a base. After you get a hang of it, of course, add ingredients. Why not? Add ingredients, add in several tools, but the base is done and dusted there and there, right? So this is how you create a simple design in Canva. Likewise, someone had made a flyer for Moments of Truth. He had designed it. So here, what you would want to do, you can try this out by yourself. What you would want to do is that you would want to select a A4 kind of size, definitely not a squarer one, right? Because the text and the stuff won't fit in. You would want to select a A4 kind of size, and just like the way I created one, you can create a similar kind of design with proper ease, right? You don't have to face too much of technicalities. Things are very simple, and with use of ruler, you can properly align stuffs here and there, right? So you can try this out. So this is how we make use of several tools of Canva. And in case we are really not aware of brand guidelines, in case we are really not that comfortable with brand guidelines, surely we can make a very simple design that does actually look really appealing and doesn't require too much of effort of yours, right? So this is how we make our design. Now in the final segment, what I would want to do is that I would show you some flyers, right? Just like the way I created this one, I would want to show you some flyers and show you how different kind of effects can change the complexity and change the dimensions and things of flyers altogether, right? So I have created few flyers. Right? So here you have it. This has been created in Canva itself, just like the way I placed in all the pictures, just like I showed you how you can use a third-party app to remove the background quite easily. To do that, you remove the background, you place the name, and you just have to add in some text, right? Now, regarding the use of icons, so again, just as I mentioned in the very start, icons too are freely available, right? You type in icon, whichever icon you would want to use. Let's say, for example, the icon of time or clock has been used. You type in time here, You go to elements, you type in time, you see an option, you get an icon, right? You get several icons. Now, of course, you very well know that we can't use all these icons, right? Let's say we use this one. You can't properly edit it, right? In case you do, you can use it, but the color codes won't match it, right? In case you aren't able to edit it. Now, there's a subtle difference between the use of icon and use of clip art as mentioned in brand guidelines. Many a times we see that people tend to use clip arts in their brand guideline, in their flyer, and those flyers straight away gets rejected by the PR team, right? So we would want to ensure that we don't use clip arts in our flyer, and we use icons in our flyer, right? There is a section for sure regarding the use of clip arts and use of icons. Not being able to find that particular section. Yeah. So in this section, which is regarding the images and photography, in bold letters, it has clearly mentioned, please do not use cartoon, illustrations, or clip arts in material created for club, area, divisions, districts, and regions, right? Now you want to understand what exactly is the difference between an icon and a clip art. You type in a clip art out here. Now you see all these kind of fancy stuffs, which of course you can't edit it at all, right? You have simple icon, you can edit it, use the icons, right? You get, let's say if it is a location, you get an icon of location, you edit the color, you want it in white, you want it in yellow, whichever color you want, you can edit it freely, right? So this is how you work around with icons as well. So time icon, calendar and location, simple, right? Nothing too fancy here, no use of gradient, just a simple effect on text that has been used, right? So how do you make this 3D kind of effect on text? Here you can see there's a slight shadow which is visible behind the text. So again, there's no technicality whatsoever regarding the use of this effect. Now, once you type in your text, whatever text it is, just select the text. And once you select, you see here an option called effects, right? Now here you see several effects that you can freely use. For shadow, it is a shadow. Now it provides a shadow kind of stuff, but to use that kind of effect, a 3D kind of effect, you see an option called lift, and you click on it and you get a 3D effect on your text, right? A shadow, kind of a shadow effect to your text. Of course, you can play around with it, whatever form suits you, whatever it looks good on your design, you can choose that, right? And everything is brand compliant. Now, you would want to go a little of a further step, right? A further step ahead from this design itself, right? Now, what I have done here is that text, everything is similar. Now, behind this picture, you can notice a difference that there is a slight shadow kind of thing, right? Slight effect kind of thing, right? So how do you do that? Here, you don't find it. This is just a simple picture. How do you do it? I had shown you earlier, either the hard way out. You select your picture, you make a copy of it, right? You make a copy of it, place it in the background, send it in the background. Now, of course, it doesn't look good in any way. Now, you reduce the transparency a bit and try to do a proper placing of it, right? Once you do that, things become really technical, but we don't want to go into those technicalities, right? A simple way out to get out of this problem, you have an update in your particular Canva account. You select the picture, you straight away edit it, and you see different kind of effects. Shadow, add in shadow, a curve kind of shadow. This doesn't go with your picture, leave it. Angle, you get an angle kind of shadow, angle shadow. You need a backdrop, you get a backdrop. Yeah, you see the effect here, right? So whatever suits you. For me, drop, I find drop to be one of the best shadows that we can use. Of course, now you can edit it in whichever form you want to. Shadows, drop, there you go, right? See shadows, right? So there's no technicality whatsoever. It's just a few clicks away to getting some decent kind of shadow effects, right? Now, again, you would want to move one step ahead from here. One step ahead, what it is? It is the use of gradient, right? So how do you use it? Just delete the gradient. I just deleted the gradient layer. You've made your design. Now you've thought of adding a gradient, right? You thought of checking whether a gradient would suit here or not, right? Just as I showed you, type in gradient out here, go to graphics and see which gradient suits you. Now again, here the complexity is that you can't edit all the gradient. Let's say you select this one, you can't edit it because this is only available to pro version, right? We are not using pro one, so we are not using that particular gradient. This particular gradient which fades from this particular color to this shows a nice fade effect, is definitely usable and is definitely editable, right? So you resize it and you would want this to be in your background, right? So first just change the color. Red, which one is it? Check let's say we use, for the blue it is 004165 along with 006094. You can find these codes in the brand manual, and now you would want to place this particular gradient effect to your background, right? Send it to the back one by one. If there's no any other layer in your background, of course you can directly send it, but in my canvas there are several other layers, so had I placed it to go directly to the backward, it would have messed things up. So this is how you place a gradient, and this is how you place some shadow effects to it, and the flyer looks really very appealing. From simple this with no effects to this, right, with a gradient effect. Of course, a similar one. Now again, you would want to play around with certain tools. I've added just a text box out here, nothing too fancy. I've added a text. How do you add it? You have element. As I said, you can play around with different shapes. You place it over here, you resize it, and you make it go backward, right? Done. Do some adjustment and you're good to go, right? With just a box, again, things become a lot more clearer and a lot more appealing, right? The importance, the more important thing is that the value of Toastmaster is getting properly highlighted here, right? You can clearly understand here, you by seeing this particular flyer or any other flyer for that matter, you can clearly distinguish that, okay, this is a Toastmasters meeting and this is a flyer for Toastmasters meeting, and you can clearly differentiate all the aspects here, right? So no technicalities whatsoever. And if you want to go some further steps ahead, right, you would want to add some sort of design element with a white background, you do this, right? Here I've added a label. Type in a label here, you get different labels, right? You would want your theme to be placed separately. You would want that to get highlighted a bit. You get different kind of labels here, right? Again, only few are brand compliant, so you need to figure it out which one are those and which one are properly editable, and you select one of those, right? You select one of the labels and you create a kind of effect. For picture, again, the picture has been slightly edited here. A touch-up has been given, a slight black and white kind of effect has been given with, when it is compared to this particular picture, right? So it is perfectly going on with the flyer, right? See the difference. This one, you've played around with some stuffs in Canva, you've placed a box kind of thing here, and things look completely changed, right? So the thing here is, despite not knowing anything of Canva and not knowing despite not knowing the brand guidelines properly, you can still create something out of it, and you can still create a proper brand compliant flyer or a poster, whatever it is, right? So this is how you play around with Canva. Of course, I cannot or nobody can teach you how you can use Canva in just one day. It is a matter of practice. Practice makes a man perfect, right? So similarly with prepared speeches, right? You have three speakers placed here. You have shadow. You've added shadow. I've already talked about it, and things are pretty clear out here, right? I've talked about icons, how you place it, and how I properly aligned all of them so that the proximity is maintained and the flyer in the end looks properly visible. Shadow effect, as I've talked about, you can play around with shadow. There are several buttons to play around with, and you can see how those buttons and how those options behave, and then you can figure out a clear way of playing around with different kind of effects that are available in Canva, right? So this is about it, right? Next thing that we see a lot of people talking about, and of course it has been mentioned in the brand guidelines as well, is the use of photographs in a flyer, right? So if you check the brand manual, it has clearly mentioned about the use of photographs. Now here, somewhere in down, you have a section for images and photography, right? The Toastmasters logo can be used on photography as long as the placement of the logo has good contrast between the logo and the image behind the logo, and the logo isn't part of anything specific in the image. The logo also should not directly cover people's faces or compete with the image and all those stuffs it has talk about. What it is trying to say is that we can definitely place in picture and we can definitely place in a logo out there, but the logo shouldn't go in contrast with any other stuff, right? Had you placed your logo here, it would probably would not be as visible as this is, right? So a gradient has been used here. You can see fading gradient has been used over here, and the logo now becomes completely visible, right? The image has been edited. Of course, you can edit image in whatever form you want to, right? You can make it look professional. You can do some stuff with the images, but the most important thing that we need to ensure is that whatever image we place should be related to Toastmasters, right? In a way that it highlights the importance of Toastmasters public speaking environment that we are in, right? So it shouldn't be that you place anything of your choice, right? And place in logo out there, and the image has nothing to do with Toastmasters in whatever way, right? So you don't place in those kind of pictures. You ensure that you place pictures that are related to Toastmasters meeting, which has been mentioned in the brand guidelines. And for that, Toastmasters has provided you with a set of pictures, professional pictures, which are of high quality, which surely can be placed somewhere or the other in your flyer if you want to make use of pictures and make your flyer look a lot more appealing, right? So lot many times we see people speaking about using picture which is related to their theme, right? The important thing that we need to understand, and was definitely mentioned in one of our session, is that it is not the theme that we are trying to highlight in our flyer. It is the Toastmasters and the value of Toastmasters that we are trying to highlight in our flyers, so that we can get maximum attention of our guests, and they can clearly differentiate the difference in different flyers that they see around in social media and one that they see of Toastmaster, right? So we have nothing to do with the theme. We can of course highlight the theme in form of text, but if the theme is not going in parallel with the kind of picture that you use, which of course is not brand compliant, you cannot place that picture there. Just for the use of picture, the flyer will get rejected, right? The same thing has been mentioned here in the guidelines. Stay away from images that do not connect to Toastmasters environment, such as those mainly or solely portraying landscapes, animals, children, food appliance, medicine, architecture, whatever it is. It has to be something or the other related to Toastmaster. If you don't want to use pictures that are freely provided by Toastmaster, use some other picture. Use pictures from your meeting itself, right? But stay away from pictures that are not related to Toastmasters, right? An example would be, let's say, in a flyer out here, we have used a picture which has been provided by Toastmasters International itself. We have edited it with a kind of gray shade to it. You can perfectly use it. There's no problem whatsoever. But let's say if you have a theme called Coffee with Daniel and you have placed a picture of a coffee, I'm not sure what you would want to do. Maybe the TMOD is distributing free coffees from Starbucks to all the members, and you placed a picture out here of coffee. Straight away the flyer will get rejected, and straight away you can understand that this flyer is not brand compliant, right? So we must ensure that we use proper images that are highlighting the Toastmasters and its importance, right? So this is about the use of images. So I hope I've made things clear. And yeah, this is more about it. Now I'm open to questions if you have any, or I missed any, I'm not sure about it. We can have some questions if you want to.
Please raise your hand or write your question on. Okay, I see Toastmaster Sagri Gupta has raised her hand. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question? Yes.
Thank you. I have one question. Can we use videos or moving graphics as a part of our flyers or posters? When I say videos, it could be related to, say, a meeting, maybe a 5-second clip, but is that as compliant as well?
Yes, definitely. For that, again, I would share my screen and move on to brand manual. Now, you would surely find an option for videography as well, right? For video, and you have a guideline for video. Now, what does it say? Now, your video has to be brand compliant, one thing. Second thing, and of course, add several graphic effects to it, because it is a video and you are presenting it in form of MP4 and not as a flyer. You can definitely do that. But one thing that you would want to ensure is that you add this particular disclaimer. You read this particular section, and this happens to be the disclaimer that you must mention in the start or in the end, wherever you want to in your video. Right, you just copy paste, you paste it over, you paste it in your flyer, video, whatever it is. And one other important thing is that you give credit to the maker of the video. Whoever makes your video, you give credit to that particular person, right? This stuff has been mentioned in the guidelines. Of course, by using Canva itself, you can create videos, you can create appealing videos, but you must ensure that it is brand compliant. Very important. Second thing, you add a disclaimer. And third thing, you give credit to the maker of the video, right? So this is as simple as that when it comes to making videos and posting stuffs. Hope this answers your question.
Thank
And,
you.
I would need to add a little bit to that. You have to mention clearly the club and district so that it is very clear to the audience that it is not a video that is made by Toastmasters International, but by the club, and that has to be prominent all over. The disclaimer has to be in the first slide itself, or the first screen itself, and the credit has to be at the end. And all those who are featured in the video you need to get a signed consent from them, unless it is a video of a meeting where you have at the beginning shared that the video will be shared and taken consent, that it will be made public. The next hand that we have up, thank you. I hope that your question was answered. The next hand that was up was somebody who has lowered their hand now. I do have a question here in the chat, and the question is from Toastmaster Yash. Toastmaster Yash is asking, is white background allowed as per Toastmasters guideline, where we can place Toastmasters logo as per Toastmaster guideline?
Yeah, so to answer this, yes, definitely you can use white background to your flyer, right? There's no restriction whatsoever with the use of white. And of course, as I mentioned, you can use a gradient of blue, red, and gray, or any other color which are brand compliant, along with the white one, a fading kind of effect, right? And when it comes to logo, placement of logo, of course, as suggested by Toastmasters International, the most prominent and most dominant location to place the logo is the either the top left corner or bottom right corner, right? So you place your logo somewhere there, and in case if you don't find sufficient space or whatever it is to place your logo in any of the two corners, you place it in between, you place it in the center of the top part, and keep proper spacing as mentioned by as mentioned in brand guidelines, so that the logo is properly visible and the importance of logo is not getting distorted by rest of the elements in your particular flyer, right? So I hope this answers your question.
Thank you, Toastmaster Sahil. We have another raise of hand by Toastmaster Yogya Ansaria. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask a question?
Yes, good evening. So, firstly, this session was really informative since I have just started using Canva a couple of weeks back. Now, I have this one question that I'm serving my club as an associate PR. Okay, so my PR, she is actually able to put in borders, right, for the posters. And when I am using it, so we use lines, the tools lines, and the square line, and then we adjust it to the rectangular posters, right? So she is somehow able to edit it into a rectangular thing, and I am not able to. You get my question? The width and the height and the width is directly proportionately getting changed, right?
Yeah,
Toastmaster Sahil, you might want to show it actually.
yeah, definitely. I missed out with this aspect. As highlighted by you, these are definitely some of the cons of using Canva. I would use a white blank sheet. I would clear the guides first, right? So let's say you're using a shape, whichever shape it is.
Your screen is not sharing.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry. Is it visible now?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So let's say you're using this shape square. Here you are being able to change width, height, anything, and of course you are able to change the size of this particular object, which is square, in a single ratio, right? In a same ratio. But when it comes to certain shapes and certain elements, let's say it is a gradient. Okay, let's say this is the gradient that we are using. Forget about the colors right now. Here you don't get an option to change the width of it, right? You're allowed to change this particular figure, this particular gradient, in a single ratio by having a fixed width and height, right? So for no particular reason, many a times this particular gradient goes out of your Canva, right? Out of your canvas, I beg your pardon. So these are certain restrictions. So when it comes to using border, you can of course make use of this particular shape. You can resize it in whichever form you want to, and you can place it over here, right, in a rectangular form. And you resize it, you place it in the border, and you want a copy of it, you want a similar figure in one of the sides, you make a copy of it, you rotate it, place it over here. Now the thickness might be looking a bit thick, so you can of course place it properly because of the restriction, right? You can place it properly, make it look a bit thinner. Done, right? When it comes to lines, you have lines here, which you can easily play around with, and you have certain thicknesses, right? Lines weight. So see, if you use line, you don't have to use that shape. You can place it over here, make a copy of it, place it in the next corner, and there you go. You have border. You can properly place it, but this is how you play around. And yes, of course, as I mentioned, there are certain restrictions with Canva, right? You can't freely edit everything, and you aren't allowed to play with stuffs freely, just as the gradient that I just showed. So these are something that we need to be wary of, and these are something that we will have to be habituated of, because of course in free nothing, you don't get too much of stuffs in free, right? You're already getting enough of things in free, and we don't expect a lot of stuffs to be in free unless we pay for a pro account and use something in a professional manner, right? So this is it. This is about it. I hope it answers your question.
Yes, thank you. Can I ask you another question?
Can we move to another question because we do have a lot of raised hands? So can we move to the next person? There is a question in chat. Maybe Toastmaster, can I request Toastmaster or Toastmaster Anuj to reply to whatever is written in the chat, and I will just ask those who have raised hand to just unmute yourself and ask the question. Toastmaster Mohammad Hassan Mahmoud Sajib, can you turn on your video as well as your mic and ask your question, please?
Thank you. My question was regarding the picture. Toastmaster Sahil said that if we remove the background, then it can be placed in the flyer. But what if we don't remove the background and place the picture in a circular or rectangular frame in the flyer?
Yes, definitely. You can make use of pictures in that way if that suits your flyer and your design. Definitely, you can make use of that. But things again that we need to make sure is that whatever picture, wherever we use those pictures in Toastmasters flyer and Toastmasters design elements, we need to make sure that those pictures are somewhere related to environment of Toastmasters, right? Which is public speaking, leadership, and confidence, and all those stuffs that you can relate to with Toastmasters. You need to make sure that you use those kind of pictures. Regarding placement of picture, it is not mandatory that you place those pictures just in the background. As I showed, you can place it in form of circle, square, if that suits your particular design. Let's say, for example, I take a blank canvas.
You'll have to share screen again.
Oh, I keep on forgetting that. Sorry. Okay, so let me take a blank canvas and let me upload a picture. Let's say this, right? So I place this picture over here. I don't want this picture to come over here, right? So I use this picture over here. Of course, when you place any text out here, it won't be visible. It will go in contrast. So you would definitely want to ensure that either you use a shape kind of thing to place your text out here, or you lower the resolution, or you place a proper shape, just as I did in one of the flyers, wherein a gray color was used. And because of that, the entire text that were used above the picture were visible, right? So this is all about it. I mean, the way you use your picture is totally up to you, but the restriction, you need to understand it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have Toastmaster Swati Jain raising her hand. I request you to please turn on your video as well as your mic, unmute yourself, and then please ask a question. Can I request you to turn on your video also, please?
Actually, I'm not having good internet connection, that's why I'm unable to switch on. And here I go with my question. I want to ask, like you said, in the background you can only use only 3 colors. But what about white? White does not come in the guidelines. Then why are we using white color in the background, why black? And then are we supposed to use the same color in text also, like the 3 colors only, the 4 colors actually? So my question is that.
Yeah, so for this question, it is really important to understand why those 3 or 4 set of colors have been provided by Toastmasters International, right? There is a reason for it. If you read the brand guidelines, it has been mentioned that these colors have been used because they are simple. They somewhat depict the value of Toastmasters, which is confidence, and you get a positive feelings out of these colors. Now, I've been using a virtual background, right? Had I used a black color instead of this red one, it would have looked really horrible, right? Flyer indeed would have looked really nice, depending upon whichever color you use, but the value of Toastmasters International isn't getting highlighted in any way whatsoever. When it comes to white, it is the cleanest color, right? And black, you can't use it because it doesn't depicts the importance of Toastmasters, and white, it is a natural color. You can use it freely, and it goes otherwise when it comes to black, use of black. And similar things when it comes to use of colors, that has been provided by Toastmasters International.
When you're, I would like to add, when you're using white as the background, you will be using the Toastmasters blue, royal blue, the maroon and gray, as well as the accent color yellow, if appropriate, in the design itself. And white color actually works as a plain space. That is one reason. And the next question was about the font colors. You can use white and black also as font colors if appropriate in the design.
Yeah,
there is another hand raised by Akriti Mathur. Toastmaster Akriti, would you like to unmute yourself and turn on your video also? Toastmaster Akriti? Okay, Toastmaster Akriti may not be around. So I'm not allowed to unmute yourself. No, I asked to unmute you. So please check. We have not done any restriction on unmuting.
she might be facing some issues, I guess.
Yeah, maybe it's a technical issue. In that case, please write your question on the chat. Can you please write your question on the chat? I think the questions that were on chat have been replied by Toastmaster Anuj, our other Creative Excellence Manager for District 41. About the background, removal of background, maybe you joined in later, Toastmaster Vijaya Mishra. Yes, as replied by Toastmaster Anuj, it cannot be done in the free version, but Toastmaster Sahil had mentioned about another app that is outside of Canva that you can use, that is Remove BG, and it is a free app, so you can use it.
Yeah, I've mentioned the site in the chat box. You can click on that, or you can use that, and you can freely use that particular site to remove backgrounds. Yeah. Is there any other question?
Yes, there was somebody who wanted you to show how to use white on top of the colors. I think he's talking about the transparency part. So if you can show how to use transparencies in which is brand compliant in our designs in Canva, then it will be good.
Yeah. So regarding the use of transparency, let me again go to the brand manual first. And here you go. Here regarding regarding the transparencies, things have been mentioned very clearly, right? So your top swatch, which is the top layer, has to be white with an opacity of 70%. Bottom swatch has to be any of these three colors: red, maroon, or white. Right here, I beg your pardon, gray color, right? So this is how you use. So by following this, let's take a blank canvas and see what the guideline says. The bottom one has to be a gradient. You can use a solid color as well. Right now it has mentioned about gradient, so let's use a gradient in our bottom layer element. Let's add a gradient. Yeah, here you go. You add a gradient, you edit the color. Yeah, you use the color gradient, and on top of it, you use a white a white figure, right? So in this case, we use a shape, a square possibly works. You resize it. I won't resize it completely. I want to show a difference. Now, this is white, right? Now, what has the guidelines mentioned about the kind of transparency? It has mentioned about 70% of transparency, right? So let's make it 70% transparent. The top swatch, remember the top swatch, which is white here right now, 70% transparent. Transparency, you find an option here, 70, right? So things look completely different in Canva, right? We're working with transparency in Canva is really difficult. Now here we had used white, and the background color, the background layer is a gray one, but see how things looks, right? So it becomes really technical with Canva, working on around with gradient. Of course, when you lower transparency to less than 70%, you can make things work, but as suggested by Toastmaster of 70%, things look different, right? So it is up to you whether you find transparency effective when it comes to making flyer. This is why I didn't completely resized it, because see the difference. It looks really different, and somewhat it looks non-brand compliant. The color goes away, the color fades away, right? So this is how you work around with transparency. When it comes to picture, let's say you have a picture placed behind this. I had a flyer. Let's take an example of this where a picture is placed, and above that picture a layer of black color has been used. Let me change this to blue, let's say, and you play around with transparency, right? This is one way of playing around with transparency when it comes to using images. So this is all about it. I mean, it is up to you to decide whether you would want a transparent layer, but you do want to ensure that you follow whatever that is mentioned in the guidelines, and you rotate and you move around that particular radius that has been set by the guidelines, right? So I hope this answers your question.
And please note that, as Toastmaster Sahil mentioned, it doesn't have to be 70% itself. You can lower the transparency. Also, another thing, don't put entirely completely transparent portion only. It's that completely changes the color of your background. So when you're doing that, it's and if you're using maroon, then certain portion can have a transparency over it, and you can use gradient of from 0 to up to 70% of transparency for that. But please don't use, let's say you have a maroon background and you put a portion with a transparency of 70% blue. Please don't do that. You can just do a transparency of that same color which is in the background.
Right. So exactly what distinguished Toastmaster Moon mentioned, you can use it in form of shapes, right? So you need to decide by yourself what kind of transparency you want to use here. Again, in the guidelines itself, the blue has been made a little transparent here. This shape has been made a little transparent. So it is up to you to decide what looks good on your flyer and follow the guidelines. Yeah.
We have two questions in the chat box. How to crop picture from any image external source in specific shape and use in Canva. Please guide.
Okay, so regarding the use of shape in form of an image, so normally I showed you how you can use a third-party app, remove the background, add your image, and decide on the shape by yourself, right? The other thing that is available is grids to us. In element section itself,
No need to share your screen.
oh God, just forgetting this. Okay, so I haven't worked. So earlier, as I mentioned, I informed you about using third-party app and then uploading image and deciding on the shape by ourselves. The other way, if you don't want to remove the background, or let's say the picture gets pixelated enough when you remove the background and you want that background to stay with that picture, you have an option, go to elements, and somewhere you find frames and grids, right? So you can make use of these frames. Let's say we use this one. this frame is placed, and all that you need to do is place that particular picture over here. Of course, you can't place in this picture with a background removed, because this would mean a similar thing of just placing the picture without using a grid. If a picture has a background, let me select one. Let's say this, it has a background and you want this picture to be in this shape. Just place it over here, drag and drop, drag and drop, as simple as that. You can make use of any shape provided here. Again, you would want to ensure that you don't get out the radius provided by Toastmasters International when it comes to brand guidelines. So you would want to ensure that you don't use anything that is out of the brand guidelines. Let's say this one, wherein the colors are out of context. You can place your image for sure, but the colors and the kind of grid or the frame that has been used is out of context, right? So this is how you do. Yeah.
Yes. Also, you cannot customize the shape in the free version of the Canva. So whatever is available there, you can use for that. We have the question finally from Toastmaster Akriti, who had raised her hand. Her question is, are the gradient guidelines same for the gradient elements like shapes, banners, and lines? Example, in a text box, can we use a gradient of maroon and blue? Also, can we substitute a static flyer with a short animated flyer for meeting? Two questions there.
Yes. Regarding the animated flyer, I would want Toastmaster Anush to answer. But when it comes to use of gradient in form of design elements, let's say you want to add a gradient, and above that gradient you would want to add a text. You can definitely do that, right? So, for example, if I have to give an example, let's say instead of this red, which is a simple red, I used a gradient of red, right? So let me take a copy of this particular gradient.
Is not shared.
Sorry, so sorry. Right. So I showed you this particular flyer wherein I have used red as a design element, and over that color I've placed in some text and logo and everything, right? So instead of this simple red, let's say I use a gradient, right? So placing a gradient red, B02, you have it, and the other one of red, you place it over here, you can freely use it. Let's say you want to use a gradient of red itself or any other color over here, you can use it freely, right? There's no restriction whatsoever. But again, the important thing is to follow the guidelines properly and effectively when it comes to use of gradient and use of colors in those gradients, right? So this is about it. And regarding animation, I would want Toastmaster Anush to answer it.
I think Toastmaster Anuj has dropped out because of technical issues. As for animation, no animation as in pictures being following the guidelines of pictures itself is a different thing. Just like illustrations, animation that will be more of a I'm trying because my battery is gone. Okay, my battery is gone.
Okay, let me add to Moon's answer
My
itself.
battery is gone. That's why I am not able to speak from the other one. So yes, as long as it's not animations, which will be like illustrations, and it is more of pictures itself. And as for the brand brand manual, then having a transition of images is possible. I think my computer is trying to tell me that we should wrap up the meeting. I do not see any more questions or raise of hands. So at this point, I would like to thank. Is there one? No, there is a thank you. So because I'm not a co-host anymore or a host anymore, so I will not be able to say.
Just one more thing to add on regarding the animation itself. One thing, when you make certain animation in Canva, one thing that you would want to differentiate is that whether that particular animation fits in form of flyer or in form of video. Because anyway, when you create an animation, it's gonna be what 2-3 seconds kind of thing. It surely would fit in the category of video, because there is nothing mentioned about animations or things related to that. So it is up to you to differentiate in what form it fits, because surely you're not going to share your animation in form of a flyer, PNG or JPEG form, right? It is either going to be a GIF, or it is either going to be a video of 2 or 3 seconds long, right? So it is either video or a flyer. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sahil, for clarifying it further. So at this point, I would like to thank everybody who attended today, and more so to our DPRM team member, our Creative Excellence Manager for District 41, Toastmaster Sahil, for coming and taking this session. I hope you've learned something. We have almost a year ahead. I know we are done with 2 months. We've started with September, but we still have a lot to do to promote our meetings so that we can have more guests join in, our members join in, inform everybody so that we have more people benefiting from the platform called Toastmasters. Wish you all the best in your journey as PR, Vice President PR or associates, or in any other position that you are, who are trying to help promote Toastmasters in your community. So good luck with this good deed that you're doing. If you have any questions, do let us know. I would like to request Toastmaster Sahil to maybe share your email address or your WhatsApp number, whichever you're comfortable sharing, so that we can have questions addressed to you later. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. Have a good weekend if you still have Sunday off. Otherwise, have a good week ahead. Thank you. Yes, we will be sharing the video in the future.
Thank you all for joining. I've mentioned my mailing details and WhatsApp number in the chat box. You can make use of that if you have any questions. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you. Bye. Happy PRing.